Lady, lean in, listen up, because today I have got a truth bomb that may be difficult for you to hear, but I'm going to say it because I know you're here for the truth. Just because your partner's behavior doesn't make sense to you doesn't mean it doesn't make sense. Yep, it's not crazy. In fact, there is no such thing as crazy behavior. And today, I'm going to share a liberating assumption that's going to help it make sense, at least to a much greater degree. Welcome to another Catalyst conversation for a relationship revolution, where we challenge the unquestioned assumptions about love, flip the script on what you've been taught, and reveal the truths that no one has told you. This month, and maybe even longer, who knows, we're diving into what I like to call liberating assumptions. Liberating as in breaking free, and assumptions as in that which we understand to be true. In this series, I'm dropping truth bombs that are going to help set you free from the lies, misconceptions, untrue beliefs that are holding you back and keeping you stuck in your relationship. And today, we're talking about the liberating assumption that there is no such thing as crazy behavior. We've all had those moments, right? Where we look at our partner and we're thinking, why in the world are you acting like that? Maybe it feels irrational or overreactive, even crazy. But as impossible as it seems, I assure you, my friend, their behavior is not crazy. Because here's the truth. All behavior has a purpose. And when you assume that behavior is irrational or wrong, you get stuck in judgment and conflict. And when you can learn to see the deeper purpose, that the need that lies underneath, you can unlock compassion and clarity and the ability to respond with influence instead of reactivity. And that shift can transform not just your marriage, but the way you lead everywhere else in your life. So this is a really important conversation. And as a reminder, if something in this conversation moves you and you know that you want to go deeper to learn how to really do this, then I want to invite you to join the Relationship Revolution membership. This is a $147 a month program. You can cancel anytime. That's going to give you the structure, the tools, the support to move this learning into lasting change. I'll share more about this at the end of our conversation today, but I wanted to plant the seed now. Sound good? All right. Before we get into all the good stuff, let me take a moment to introduce myself for those of you who may be new to me, to this work that we're doing. My name is Dr. Jeni Wahlig. I am an award-winning relationship mentor, speaker, author, and educator, and I am a disruptor. I am on a mission to make this world a better place through more conscious and evolved relationships. See, I believe that a lot of the suffering in this world is caused by relationships that aren't working. And the reason that they're not working is because no one has bothered to teach us how to do them consciously, and most of us don't realize that we have the power to transform our relationships. It doesn't take two. It starts with one, with you. So I work with women entrepreneurs who desire to have legendary marriages, the kind that fill your soul, lift you higher, and support your mission and all of your dreams. And who desire to have that kind of marriage, even if your spouse is not doing the work with you at first. And yes, if your spouse does want to do the work with you, I get to work with them too. In fact, I get to bring my partner and soulmate, Calvin, who's also the co-founder of Powerful Love, into that work. In these Catalyst conversations and in everything we do here at Powerful Love, our goal isn't just to teach you how to do relationships better. No, it is much bigger than that. It is to redefine and to unlock what is possible and to empower you, fellow visionary, to have the relationships that you desire and deserve without having to wait for anyone else to get it first. So let's dig in deeper into this conversation around the liberating assumption that there is no such thing as crazy behavior. This assumption is anchored in the recognition that all behavior is purposeful. Every single thing that your partner does that you do, that everyone does, even the stuff that makes zero sense to you, everything that a human does is an attempt to meet a need. Let's say that again. Everything that another human being does is done in an attempt to meet a need. Sometimes that's obvious, but most of the time it is unconscious. And if you look really closely, a lot of those needs can fall somewhere under the umbrella of self-protection, a deep need for safety. Now, to be fair, a lot of the ways that we try to meet those needs are wonky. They are ineffective, maybe even harmful. They might seem a little crazy, but I'm going to go a little off script here and say that, or not off script, like off my notes, and just say that we're not taught how to get our needs met in very effective ways. So yeah, we're gonna come up with all kinds of crazy ass ways. And a lot of the ways that we try to get our needs met are like the ways that a kid would, right? There are these adaptive children within us who are just protesting or stamping their feet or throwing a fit or fighting or being manipulative or being selfish or like all kinds of shit. The egocentric, where they're only thinking about their self and not seeing another person's perspective. The human psychology is wild. Not crazy though, but wild, right? So even though your partner may not be able to put words to what that their need is, just like you may not be able to put words to why you did a thing or said a thing or didn't do a thing or didn't say a thing, right? You can still assume, my love, that there was a need there. And when you see your partner's behavior through that lens, right, there's a need here. Instead, like that then empowers you to shift into some level of curiosity and compassion. And now curiosity and compassion, those are powerful state energies. When you're in a powerful state energy, you have access to love energy. You have access to solutions. You have access to your wise self. You have access to consciousness, to a lot more power and creativity to like move your relationship to where you want to go than you do when you're closed off in judgment or reactivity, in which case you're most likely to move into disconnection and create more problems, more frustration, more disconnection, more judgment, more non-love between you and your partner, which escalates and amplifies crazy behavior on both of your parts. Okay, so you're by holding this assumption that their behavior, while I don't understand it, it does not make sense to me. It is not crazy. It is serving to make a need, so I can at least make sense of it in that way. There's a need here. Now you can get curious. Now you can have compassion. What's the need underneath? Now you're stepping into a whole new level of power. And you could start asking empowering questions and solving for what is the right problem. Not like, how can you do that? But like, what's actually going on here? Very different question. Which, by the way, I want to clear up a common trap that we all fall into and I don't hear anybody else talking about. So pay attention because this is real. And I'm sure your partner does this to you, but babe, you're doing this to your partner too. I promise. When you ask why they did something, because you're confused and you can't fucking understand like what the hell that was about. Why would you do that to me? Why? That is not curiosity, honey. That's judgment. That is not you actually seeking to understand. Sure, some part of you is like, no, I want to understand, Dr. Jeni. I do want to understand. I would love to understand why the fuck they acted that way, why they would do that to me, why they would do that to our relationship. Would really love to understand. Sure. Really? Yes, a part of you wants to understand, but the energy of your question is not, I really want to understand. I really want to know your world. I really want to see things from your perspective. I really want to connect with your experience, your map of the world. I want to be able to step into your shoes, my love. No, that kind of why did you do that? That kind of why, the meta message, the tone, the real energy underneath, if you were to get really brutally honest with yourself, is judgment, is the statement, that was a bad decision. That was the wrong decision. That was fucked up. You were wrong or bad or crazy for doing that, choosing that, not doing that. Like you're hurtful, you screwed up. And the why is more about persuade me to see it your way, right? Like, sure, convince me to agree that the decision you made, the choice you made was the right choice. Because I don't think it was. But if you can convince me, like I would love for you to convince me, I would love for you to change my mind so that I can get to the place where I would make the same decision that you would make. And that is not understanding, that's agreement. I have a whole other conversation about understanding versus agreement in another one of my videos. And if you really want that one, comment understanding versus agreement, and I'll dig it up for you. So that's not where we're trying to go, okay? That kind of why, that kind of thinking you want to understand is not actually wanting to understand. You don't want to understand. Okay. Do I want to say anything else about that? Or can I get off my soapbox yet? Checking in. Okay. I just want to say, like, if you're coming from that energy of like, I really want to understand my partner. Why can't I understand them? I want to understand. Check your energy, love, because it's going to make a big difference. That kind of energy is going to breed disconnection and defensiveness. If you really want to understand, you have to be in an energy of compassion, connection, caring, concern, genuine curiosity. The reframe here is to assume a positive intent, even if it came from a negative place, right? If you lead with like, there was a positive intention here. They needed safety. They were trying to get a need met. They wanted to protect themselves. They didn't trust me, and they didn't feel like there was any other way. Like even if it was a totally messed up way of getting to meeting their needs, you're assuming that like some part of them wasn't trying to actively cause harm. They made a choice that maybe did, but wasn't trying to be a horrible person, but was trying to meet a need. They just did so in a wonky way. Okay. When you can assume that, right? That doesn't mean excusing it. I'm going to talk more about that in a sec. But now you can connect with that real curiosity, and that moves the needle into connection. Here's another thing I want to say here. I may have talked about this before, but I want to say it again. And this is a framework that we teach called the 90-10 rule, which says that 90% of another human being's behavior, including your own, 90% of that person's behavior is about what's happening inside of them. It's their history, their nervous system, their beliefs, their desires. Only 10% of their behaviors is actually about the situation that's in front of them in the moment. Which means, why would we ever expect another human being to act the way that we would when they are an entirely different universe on the inside? 90% of them is entirely different. We're sharing 10% of the experience. but 90% of it is different, filtered differently. So of course, they are going to react differently than we would. It's actually surprising when someone reacts similarly to how we would, thinks about things similarly to how we would, right? Assume that there's going to be differences more often than that there's going to be similarities because you're different. So get curious. There are so many gifts in our differences, so many ways we can learn and expand from one another, grow and evolve as people. When we get curious about those differences, the differences are not the problem. Okay. It's how we react to those differences that become problematic. The radical truth is this. And I'm going to say this. You might not like it, but I'm going to say this. The radical truth is this. If you had the exact same everything as another person, the same upbringing, the same DNA, the same nervous system wiring, the same worldview, the same belief systems, the same history, all the same experiences, right? You would make the exact same choice they did. There is no way that we can judge another person's experience unless we have all of their same everything. We can only use our imaginations to start to imagine. And what we do most of the time is we judge another person's behavior based on what we would do. But we are imagining what it would take for us to make that choice or do that behavior based on our DNA and our upbringing, our beliefs and our nervous system, which is not theirs, which is not fair. So now this may be a harder leap when it comes to some of the things that are going on in our culture and society right now. But if we can practice it, at least practice it at home, within our own selves, trying to have compassion for our own behaviors, and with our partners, with our kids, right? In our small circles, if we can practice this, remembering all behavior is done to meet a need. No behavior is actually crazy. All behavior makes sense to the person who is doing it on some level. There's some way of making sense of it. Even if they don't know, even if it doesn't make sense to them, there's a way of making sense of it if you can peel back enough layers of their own, like, psychological disconnection from their own needs, which is usually what it is, right? Like, there's a need there that they are attempting to meet through the behavior that they're doing. Okay. Now here's my disclaimer in all of this, and I think this is important. Understanding someone's behavior, having compassion for it, recognizing that it is an attempt to meet a need, is not the same as excusing it. Violent or harmful behavior is never okay. Never. No matter how understandable it is, it's not okay. Toxic and unhealthy patterns in your relationship are not what you deserve, love. Compassion and empathy are powerful, yes. And what you do about behaviors that cross the lines of how you deserve to be treated, cross the lines of love and integrity and justice, that is a whole nother conversation. And if that's what you're trying to navigate, then please know we have tools and support to help you with that. Just reach out because we would love to support you. It doesn't have to be unhealthy and unfair and painful in the way that your partner's behavior is affecting you. And we can support you with learning how to respond to that in a way that is aligned and empowering and connected to um, what you deserve and how you deserve to be treated, and it's more likely to get you the results that you want, which can't guarantee that your partner changes their behaviors, but it's more likely that they will. And if they don't, is going to align, nevertheless, with you tapping into and eventually experiencing the kind of love and relationship that you do deserve. So I want to share a quick story because I like to illustrate these conversations with a real life story. Our brains understand the world in stories and understand our own experience in stories. And sometimes story is the best way to make sense of concept. So I'm going to tell a story of one of the clients, couples that we worked with. This is the story of Jan, and not her real name, but a real client. So Jan had, when Jan and her wife came to work with us, they were really struggling because Jan had a bit of an affair with another woman. She had developed feelings for someone else and ended up kissing this woman. And it was understandably a big betrayal to her wife, broke a lot of trust, was legitimately an affair. And Jan's wife could not understand why Jan would do this. They had a good marriage. They had 2 young kids together. Like, why would Jan risk everything, do something so hurtful for what? For a kiss? And in exploring working with Jan, one of the things we learned is that she was missing a lot of connection in her relationship with her wife. They were going through some things, didn't have a lot of time together. Jan wasn't feeling connected. There wasn't a lot of affection or appreciation or sex and intimacy. And she was feeling really lonely. And so the connection with this other woman was meeting a need. And she was not being very conscious or intentional. She was acting from fear. She was acting from scarcity. She was acting from not knowing how to ask for her needs to be met and not believing that they could be met in her marriage. And so taking the easy path of getting her needs met through this affair, which happens a lot, unfortunately, in affairs. And so understanding that need, while that did not excuse the choice that she made, the harm that was caused by making that choice, it also brought Jan's wife into some recognition of the part that she played in the kind of the unraveling of their marriage that had contributed. It was not Jan's wife's fault, but there was a contribution to this decline that positioned Jan to be in such a deficit in her needs, because Jan had attempted to ask for more connection and more intimacy, had attempted to reach out, make bids for more connection, but her wife hadn't responded, hadn't taken it seriously that it was so bad, hadn't really shown up or done much work or put much effort into the marriage, because she was wrapped up in her own things. And so there was some neglect of the marital relationship that was happening, and her wife could take some accountability for that, and at least not excuse Jan's behavior, but at least acknowledge some part that she played, which was healing for Jan, to feel like it wasn't like that her experience of pain, the pain of the loneliness she was feeling, was valid. And there was healing there for both of them. And to have that healing was in not only Jan's accountability in like, yeah, I fucked up, and I got my needs met in a really harmful way, But then for her wife to say like, and that it wasn't okay, and there's no excuse for that. And I also can understand. I can see why you may have done it. Still not okay, but I can understand. Wow. Like, and if you've experienced an affair, that's a really hard place to get to when you've been really hurt, but it was so healing. And that is the courage and the leadership and the kind of powerful love that can happen when we choose healing and connection and compassion and love over our own pain and judgment about another's behavior. Because Jan's wife had to let go of that in order to even connect to this level of understanding. So this courageous work it's not just like, oh, okay, now it makes sense. No, it's like you have, it's not going to make sense from the way of like you agree. It's got to it's a make sense of like, I got to put myself in their shoes and see it from their lived experience, even if it's still painful, and it may still be. I hope that helps clarify and make sense. This is deep work. This is life-changing work. This is revolutionary work, love. But it is healing work. It is liberating work, and it is life-changing. Not just in your relationship, but in the ripple effects in so many places. And so I'm so glad that you are here doing this work with me. All right, taking a long time on this one because it's important and deep. So how I want to wrap up, I want to say when you start getting really good at practicing this liberating assumption, right, that there's no such thing as crazy behavior, all behavior serves a purpose, then you are no longer trapped in judgment, in taking everything really personally. Instead of reacting, you're becoming curious, right? What's underneath this? And by responding from that place, your partner can start to feel safer, more seen and more understood, even if you don't agree. They can sense that you're not dismissing them or attacking them, which creates space for faster repair, deeper intimacy, less drama, and guess what? Less defensiveness, more accountability, genuine remorse, and a greater chance of their changing their behavior in the future, right? It actually sets you up for success for their accountability, repair, and leveling up on their part, for them to feel safe because you did this, right? This doesn't just change your marriage though, right? This way of seeing people makes you a stronger leader in your business, a more compassionate parent, a more grounded woman in every place of your life. When you stop labeling behavior as crazy, you start seeing it as purposeful, then you gain greater compassion for humanity. You gain a greater connection to love. And that gives you influence. It gives you clarity. It gives you the ability to create connection where so many other people just find conflict and disconnection. And I know that you're here for that. Now, if you're already inside the relationship revolution container, keep an eye out for this week's activation. We're going to take this idea deeper and apply how you can actually respond when you're confused about your partner's behavior, so you can help uncover what it is that they actually need. If you're not yet inside the relationship revolution, this is your invitation, love. The Relationship Revolution is a monthly membership where we don't just talk about ideas like this, we practice them. Each week, our members get an activation, a reflection, an exercise, an accountability, and the support to help you integrate these conversations into your life so they become embodied. Because change just doesn't happen from listening and learning up here. It happens from practice and application in your actual relationship, and then getting support and feedback as you do to learn what's not working and how to keep doing it better. So if you're ready to actually transform your relationship, join us inside the Relationship Revolution container. It's only $147 a month, and you can cancel anytime, so there's no risk in trying it out. We're going to give you the structure, the tools, the community, the accountability, and the support. If you are an entrepreneurial woman dedicated to a more conscious and courageous love that unlocks what's possible, this is where you need to be. And of course, your partner is invited if he, she, or they are interested in joining. That's it for today. I will look forward to seeing you for next week's Catalyst Conversation, episode 3 in the Liberating Assumptions series. We're going to talk about how to help cope with when things inevitably change in our relationships and our lives. We're going to be here live Friday, 12:30 Pacific, as we are every week.